She thought the lien she put on our house was a checkmate, a final, vindictive twist of the knife. She never imagined that the very weapon she forged to destroy me would become the cage she could never escape. My name is Richard, and I'm 49 years old, though in the harsh light of my bathroom mirror, I look closer to 80. The last 2 years have carved new lines into my face, each one a testament to a war I never wanted to fight. By trade, I'm an IT project manager, a job that requires logic, order, and predicting outcomes. It's a skill set that proved utterly useless in predicting the chaotic, illogical implosion of my very own life. For 20 years, I had built a world on what I thought was a solid foundation, only to discover it was all a house of cards, waiting for a single gust of wind to blow it all away. That gust of wind turned out to be a 22-year-old karate instructor named Kai. Brenda and I were married for 20 years. We met in a crowded college bar, a classic story of opposites attract. I was the quiet, focused engineering student, already planning my 5-year career path. She was the vibrant, spontaneous art student who convinced me to skip class for the first time in my life, to go to a matinee. She was the color in my black and white world. We built a life together, a good one. We had 2 great kids, a son, Mark, who's now 17 and burdened with a quiet anger that's all too familiar, and a daughter, Chloe, who's 15 and has perfected a look of weary disappointment. We had the 4-bedroom house in the good school district, the 2 reliable cars, the yearly trip to the Outer Banks. It was a life of comfortable, predictable rhythms. It was the life I had always wanted. It was the life she had started to despise. The change was insidious, a slow poisoning I failed to diagnose, until the patient was already dead. Around her 44th birthday, a switch flipped. The woman who once found joy in our quiet weekends was now restless, a caged animal pacing the confines of our suburban life. The word she started using like a weapon was boring. Our life was boring. I was boring. "Is this it, Rick?" she asked one night, swirling a glass of wine as I balanced my work laptop, trying to meet a deadline. "Is this all there is? Work, kids, TV, sleep, repeat until we die?" Her questions were never genuine inquiries. They were indictments. She started looking at me with a kind of pitying contempt, as if I were the architect of her profound disappointment. Then, she discovered karate. At first, I was thrilled for her. It seemed like a healthy outlet, something to break the monotony she so loathed. She started at a dojo in a nearby strip mall, a place tucked between a laundromat and a pizza parlor. She began going twice a week, then 3 times, then every single day. Our dinner conversations, once about the kids or our days, became a monologue about her dojo, her katas, her sparring partners, and, most of all, her sensei. "A kid named Kai. Kai says I have a real natural talent," she'd boast, a girlish excitement in her voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. "He says I move with a grace he's rarely seen in a beginner." She started losing weight, buying tighter clothes, getting blonde highlights in her hair. She was glowing, vibrant, and a complete and utter stranger to me. The emotional distance between us grew into a silent, yawning canyon. We were no longer husband and wife. We were co-managers of a household. 2 ships passing in the night, except one ship was getting a brand new engine and the other one was slowly taking on water. I found out in the most cliched, soul-crushing way imaginable. She had bought herself a new iPad, one she guarded with a ferocity I found odd. One evening, she left it on the couch when she went to take a shower. I was tidying up, and as I picked it up to move it to the coffee table, the screen lit up. A message notification from Kai. It wasn't the words that stopped my heart. It was the picture next to them. A picture of the 2 of them, in what was clearly a hotel room, tangled in the sheets, his arm draped possessively over her bare shoulder. He was grinning at the camera. She was kissing his bicep. His message underneath it read, "Last night was incredible." Can't wait for you to leave that old man for good and make this our reality. Old man. I was 47 years old. The rage that hit me was a physical force, a white-hot wave of nausea and fury that made my vision swim and my knees feel weak. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the insult. The reduction of our entire life together into a cliché she was acting out with a boy. I waited for her to come out of the shower. I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I just held up the iPad. Her face, flushed from the steam, went stark white. For a moment, I saw a flicker of panic, of shame. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a mask of cold, defiant relief. She didn't even have the decency to lie. I'm in love with him, Rick, she said. Her voice completely devoid of emotion, as she clutched a towel to her chest. I'm leaving. I want a divorce. Just like that. 20 years of shared history, of raising children, of building a life, of inside jokes and shared griefs, erased in a single, cold-hearted sentence. She packed a bag and left that night, her tires screeching as she pulled out of the driveway. She left me alone in the silent house, with two shell-shocked teenagers and a future that had just been obliterated. And so began the 2-year war that has been my life ever since. The affair was a bullet to the heart. The divorce was a slow, methodical dissection of the corpse. Brenda, fueled by her newfound youthful passion and a shark of a lawyer who seemed to take personal pleasure in my misery, decided she wasn't just entitled to half of our assets. She was entitled to punish me for her own unhappiness, for the boring life she had chosen to blow up. Her lawyer, a woman named Sharon, with a fearsome reputation and predatory eyes, immediately went on the attack. She argued in court that I, as the primary breadwinner, had to maintain Brenda's established standard of living. She said it with a straight face, knowing full well that Brenda's new standard of living was being subsidized by me, so she could live with her unemployed boyfriend. Then they dropped the bomb, the retroactive divorce agreement. My lawyer, Dave, a good but overworked man, who always seemed to be drowning in paperwork, explained it to me in his cluttered office. Rick, it's a nasty tactic, he sighed, rubbing his temples. They're going to argue that you've been living in the house and using joint assets while she's been forced out. They'll make the support payments retroactive to the day she filed. We can fight it, but in this court, with this judge, it's a long shot. We fought it. We went to court. I sat there in a suit that felt too tight and listened to Sharon paint me as a financial bully, a controlling husband who was trying to starve his poor, helpless wife out of a fair settlement. The judge, a woman who looked at me with open disdain, barely let Dave get a word in. She signed the temporary agreement with a flourish. The hearing lasted less than 15 minutes. It destroyed the next 2 years of my life. The agreement meant that overnight, I became a criminal in the eyes of the court. I suddenly owed a full year's worth of backdated child support, even though the kids had been with me half the time, and I'd been paying for every one of their needs. And worse, a number that still makes me sick to my stomach, I owed over $10,000 in retroactive alimony. My life became a living hell. Brenda, armed with that court order, went on the offensive with a viciousness that shocked me to my core. The first thing she did was file the lien on our jointly owned house. It was a legal claim against the property for the money I owed her. A scarlet letter on our biggest asset, ensuring I couldn't sell it or refinance it without paying her first. Then she went further. She had my bank accounts frozen. I remember the moment I found out, with a clarity that still wakes me up at night. I was at the grocery store, my cart full of food for me and the kids for the week. I went to pay, and my debit card was declined. Insufficient funds, the young cashier said, her cheeks flushing with secondhand embarrassment. I knew I had thousands in that account. Must be a mistake. Can you try it again? I asked, my own voice sounding distant. Declined. I tried my credit card. Declined. I had to leave a full cart of groceries, milk, bread, fruit, the kids' favorite cereal, sitting there under the harsh fluorescent lights. I mumbled an apology and walked out of the store, my face burning with a shame so intense it felt like a physical fever. I sat in my car, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, and I finally understood. This wasn't about the money for her. It was about punishment. It was about power. She wanted to bring me to my knees. The next year was a brutal, slow-motion spiral into ruin. I had to take a loan from my aging parents, just to pay the mortgage and keep the lights on. A humiliation that cut me deeper than anything else. My credit rating, once pristine, was now in the toilet. I was getting calls from collection agencies, their voices a constant, harassing reminder of my failure. The stress was a physical weight, a constant pressure in my chest. I lost 20 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. I was staring down the barrel of a bankruptcy, a complete financial reset at an age when I should have been planning for retirement. All the while, the house sat on the market, an albatross around my neck. Each open house was a fresh torment, watching strangers walk through my kids' bedrooms, judging the life that was being dismantled around me. And now here we are, 2 years after she left. The housing market has cooled, and our beautiful family home now has to be sold as a short sale. We owe more on the mortgage than the house is worth. The banks have to approve the sale, and they stand to lose a significant amount of money. They are, to put it mildly, freaking out, scrutinizing every penny of every offer. We finally got an offer. It was low, but it was something. A light at the end of this dark, miserable tunnel. And then, the banks did their due diligence. They ran a title search. And they found the lien. Brenda's lien. The one she had slapped on the house out of pure spite, to bully me and squeeze me for that retroactive alimony she felt so entitled to. The bank's reaction was swift and utterly catastrophic for Brenda. A lien must be paid off when a house is sold. In a short sale, that money comes directly from the bank's share. They were already losing tens of thousands. The lien meant they would lose even more. So, they rejected the offer. They told our agent they wouldn't even consider another offer unless it was high enough to cover their losses and the cost of the lien. In this market, that was impossible. The house was effectively unsellable. And that's when the email arrived. It was from Brenda's lawyer, Sharon, sent to my lawyer, Dave, and carbon copy to the real estate agent. She hadn't included me, of course. Dave forwarded it to me without comment. The subject line read, "Urgent. Removal of lien on marital property." I opened it. Her lawyer wrote, "It has come to our attention that the lien filed by my client against Richard Miller is now the primary impediment to the sale of the marital home. The bank has indicated they will not approve a sale with this encumbrance in place. My client is extremely distressed, as she is relying on the proceeds of this sale. She states that Mr. Miller is now deliberately holding up the sale out of malice. We demand that you immediately undertake the necessary legal process to have your client's lien removed so that this sale can proceed." I had to read it 3 times to fully absorb the beautiful, magnificent, mind-bending audacity of it. My client's lien? She was so twisted in her own narrative of victimhood that she had convinced herself and told her lawyer that I was the one who had put the lien on the house. I sat there, staring at the screen, and a feeling I hadn't felt in 2 long, soul-crushing years washed over me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was a pure, unadulterated, delicious sense of victory. After 2 years of being on the defensive, of being ground into the dirt, she had finally, single-handedly, handed me all the power. I picked up the phone and called Dave. "Dave," I said, a smile spreading across my face for the first time in what felt like a decade. "Please do me a favor. First, forward this email to Brenda directly. And then, reply to all and tell them this." I could hear the grin in Dave's voice as he typed. The email he sent back was a masterpiece of legal professionalism and devastating, ice-cold karma. "Dear all," it began. "Thank you for your email. I must correct a significant factual error in your correspondence. The lien on the property was not filed by my client, Mr. Miller. The lien was, in fact, filed by your client, Ms. Evans, to secure a debt owed to her. As such, only Ms. Evans has the legal authority to have it removed. He continued, delivering the final beautiful checkmate. Furthermore, my client, Mr. Miller, has instructed me to inform you that he actually likes having the lien right where it is. If the house sells, the lien ensures that his back-owed court-ordered debt is paid off in full. If the house doesn't sell due to the lien, my client is unfortunately being forced to declare bankruptcy anyway, at which point these debts would likely be discharged. So, from his perspective, the lien is a win-win situation. We will not be taking any action. The next move, it would seem, is up to your client. The fallout was glorious. My phone started blowing up within minutes. A frantic call from the real estate agent. Rick, what is going on? Brenda is losing her mind. Then came the emails from Brenda, a torrent of rage-filled, typo-laden rants. You did this to me, Rick, one read. You're tricking everyone. This is your fault. She was lashing out at everyone, a cornered animal, blaming me, blaming the banks, blaming her own lawyer. She was trapped, completely and utterly trapped, in a cage of her own making. If she removes the lien, the house might sell. But she forfeits the $10,000 she was so desperate to squeeze out of me, because I'd just declare bankruptcy, and she'd never see a dime. If she leaves the lien in place, the house will never sell. It will go into foreclosure. Her credit will be destroyed along with mine, and she gets nothing. Her greed, her spite, her desperate attempt to bully me one last time had backfired, in the most spectacular way possible. For 2 years, she held all the cards. But she overplayed her hand. She put that one last bet on the table, so sure of her power, and she lost everything. I don't know what will happen with the house now, and for the first time in a long time, I don't really care. She wanted to make sure I'd never recover, but instead, she just handed me the keys to my own freedom. What's that thing they say about karma? I'll leave the answer to anyone listening.